Hi there, this is John Drew here from Elevated Planet, and today I am with author Susan Grau, author and medium. Yay, Susan!
Yeah.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Fantastic, thank you. Fantastic. And just as a point of interest, who is that on the sofa behind you? Give her
That's
a name.
Charlie.
Charlie, I'll give him
That's
a name.
and sh oh, her. It's her.
Oh, it's her.
I
Oh, it's a
all my
Charlotte.
kids. Yeah, yeah, it is actually. It's Miss Charlotte.
Ah, Charlotte.
She's from the South, so she got the name Miss Charlotte.
I'm surprised she hasn't got the big hat on with the veil type of thing going on.
Well, when they cut her hair that way, it looks like it. So I just have it short right now.
Very nice, very nice. Well, I'm glad that we have this opportunity to talk because, as you know, and I'm going to just provide a little bit of background here. I have been a big fan of Susan for the last, what is it now, over 6 years, since back in May 2018, I had my first ever mediumistic reading. And basically, I kind of always previously, as a left brainer, regarded these things as woo-woo nonsense. And it was only as a result of my daughter having gone for her first ever mediumistic reading and receiving a bunch of messages for me. Now, that reading wasn't through Susan, but it was crazy because the messages she got were so precise and so spot on that I just knew I had to therefore have a reading and work out what this nonsense was all about. So so basically, Stephanie set to find out the right person to go to, and it was her who identified Susan and looked at the Yelp ratings and all this, and said, "Dad, you've just got to. This is the one. This is the one." Um, and I've got to say, it was a 3 month waiting list for that hour that transformed my life. It really did because I realized that my version of reality was absolutely flawed because you gave me so much evidence that my family not were just around me at that point in time, but not, family, friends, and various others who were there. It was just astounding. It was just one after the next, and it answered questions. And it also referred back to times of my childhood, like from when I was 6 years old with my mom and my uncle Richard, who was also there. And they talked about like the car incident where Richard, ran, like me and him were in the car and we weren't running off the road, and it was like he was a crazy, crazy driver. And I went back and told mom because I was so excited about the fact that we skidded off the road and ended up in a field, and it was really exciting. And I couldn't understand why my mom was so angry with him.
Gosh, I don't remember. It's so weird not to remember what you read, but I think it's just part of it,
I
you
know.
know?
And I get that as well. And also, I had my ex-father-in-law, John, who came through, is a strong spirit because he actually was able to move that little gong that you had on the side. And he, as a new
Oh,
spirit, as a new spirit, you said that was actually quite unusual to see somebody
yes.
actually physically move things. Only a fraction. And then at the end we did the orbs thing where you asked if the spirits would show us their orbs when we went through into your reception room. And also you asked John, who was my ex-father-in-law, if his orb would pass through me. And I just thought this was so bizarre. But sure enough, we went into that reception room and give it a few seconds because you said, oh, they don't realize we're here. And then, like, there were about a dozen or more orbs just came through the wall at the same time and started darting around the room. And then one sort of like split off and came straight through my body. And you could only see this, obviously, through the security camera that you had. Black and white security camera, something like that. But you could make it out through that, which you couldn't see this visibly. Honestly, Susan, you changed my life. And it's the reason Elevated Planet exists is
Thank you.
because when I left your office, I just knew that I'd lived this left brain life working in the finance industry for many decades. And I just thought, no, I've got this wrong. I just need to know how wrong I have got it. So I have researched for over 6 years now to find out what life is all about. And one of the things that I love so much about Infinite Life, Infinite Lessons is that you cover this fantastically well. You know, it's such a complete work and a practical guide for people to understand the big picture of what the human experience is really all about and why it exists. And the fact that
Hmm.
we're so much more powerful than we actually realize. And it's all put brilliantly in this book,
Thank you.
on Audible as well. I've got it on both. But it is fantastic. So, Susan, you know, thank you for
Thank
impacting
you.
so significantly on my life. And it did make me think, actually, you know, when I was reading those sections, which were in my own words, which were your clients talking about their experiences of what you've helped them with. And honestly, it's really moving stuff. You know, you almost feel yourself tearing up just reading it. It was so powerful, and you have helped so many people with the
Thank you.
gift that you have. So, but congratulations. Congratulations on creating a wonderful book which will help millions of people around the planet, I am sure, to really understand what this is all about, the nature of consciousness and the human experience. It's all in this book.
I'm writing a second book, so not all of it.
All right.
Um, so yeah, I'm writing one now about the soul and how the soul can feel the wounds but never is wounded, that it's a divine bind to the divine. So I'm writing all about that and how we can utilize our soul and go inward. It's an inside job, everything. That's my next one. And I reveal a lot. You know, they had said to me, you know, they didn't want me to reveal. They wanted it to be no memoiry, and I said it's not how I write. So I reveal more in my journey of what occurred and how I got through it, because I think people need to relate that, you know, or understand that I relate to what they're going through. And I don't, obviously, I'm not in their shoes, and everyone grieves differently, and it's singular because, you know, you can have the same mom as me and she dies, and we have a different grief process because we have a different relationship. But I think it's so important for people to understand truth and the truth of the spirit world, and how to get through this journey. And that's what the first book's about. And interesting, because I want to name the second book Infinite Life, Infinite Healing. And everyone's like, no, 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 it's two. And I go, I have to. It's kind of like conversations with God. I want it to be a trilogy, you know,
Yeah.
because I really believe that it will have an impact. And I know this one does. I have people tell me they pick it up and they'll stay up till 4 and 5 in the morning trying to finish it because they don't want to put it down.
Uh,
That's a big comment.
yeah, absolutely. And I totally get that. And, you know, I mean, having read all of Neale Donald Walsch's Conversations with God, I do get that parallel, you know? This is something, because the beauty of that is that it explains it so succinctly and in a way that you can relate to. That's exactly what you've done right here. You know,
Thank
but
you.
seriously, you have. And to your point, you know, the path of suffering that you've gone through, and I love the bravery and the honesty with which you have laid bare your soul and everything that's gone on through your life. Because, and I've seen this with other healers as well, is that they've had serious life challenges. And my rationale for that, and I'm sure you agree with this, is that, you know, that's the way you decided your life was going to be, because in order to provide healing, you have to have felt what, you know, a version of what those people have gone through who come to you for healing.
You know, it's so interesting. I love that you say aversion. Because for me, I don't think I planned the exact way this was going to look. A version of it had to look this way. And
Mm,
it was going to be the version that the universe and free will created. That's
right.
how I see it. You know,
Yeah.
so, you know, I know I say that because I think it's so important that people understand that, you know, they didn't plan for their child to commit suicide, but maybe they planned for that deep grief of losing someone, you know, so close to them. So, you know, I really want people to understand that, because I think that, you know, for especially for a mother, how horrifying to think that you might have, you know, constructed that in the afterlife and how, you know, go through this immensely horrific event. So I want people to understand that how it plays out is free will, but it will play out. It's kind of like what they taught me is you make a contract to be married, right? Who you marry, how long you're married, the kind of marriage you have, et cetera, is free will for soul growth. And it's
Yes.
the same thing with loss and every other event that we go through. You know, we make a contract to go through a particular type of pain. How we go through it and who we go through it with is free will for everyone involved.
Mm.
So that's why we have so many people in our play, because they all have to play a role.
Exactly. And it's interesting you say that, because the free will thing, this is again part of my studies, have revealed that, you know, it's all about this planet being a planet of free will and non-interference. And that
Mhm.
other point as well, you know, free will creates, so it's not all orchestrated. That is, you know, it would be wrong. And there's a point that you make succinctly in the book as well, is that it would be wrong to think that, okay, yeah, we have a life path that we want to follow, but it doesn't mean that it's all laid out for us, because free will takes us in the direction that we choose. And I love, one of the bits I love about the book, and there are a lot of them, but the bit about the yellow brick road. So,
Mhm.
I mean, do you want to just tell us a bit about that? Because again, it's learning that, you know, we have a path that is laid out for us, but we don't realize it. And in the westernized world in particular, you know, we're so blocked off from our divine forces that are here, that are helping us. Yeah, I mean, Yellow Brick Road. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, when I crossed over, I saw this beautiful road. It was pavers. And the reason I called it the Yellow Brick Road was because I had seen The Wizard of Oz. So it made total sense to me as a child. And for those who don't know, I was locked in an unplugged freezer in a garage as a child, and I had a crossing over experience. And when I was seeing this yellow brick road, after I was in another room called the Room of Heart's Desires, I saw this beautiful road, and I saw a pyramid on the beginning of the road, and I saw somehow people paving, going to the bottom of this pyramid and pulling from the bottom and then paving their path, and it was bumpy and crooked, and somehow innately I knew that the pyramid was their life journey, and that when they pull from the bottom of a pyramid, what happens? It gets unbalanced.
Hmm.
And they were, you know, on their knees praying for help. And I watched these angelic and guides, you know, these angelic beings come in, and angelic beings are made of light. They
Yeah,
are pure light. I think that's why people see wings,
right,
because the light emanates from them,
right. Yeah,
in,
makes
you know,
sense.
in such a powerful way. And so I don't know if they have wings or not because of the light that emanates.
Mm,
I feel like it's light. And anyway, they came in and they took all these pavers out because the road was so crooked, and they put them back to the bottom, which I innately knew they were rebalancing the life journey. They went up to the top of it, and they took a paver, and it would recreate, as though
right.
you had other choices and other chances.
Yes.
That's how it felt. And then they started paving the path, and I said, "What are you doing?" And they said, "We are the pavers, you are not. All you have to do is walk it." And I said, "How do you know if you're walking it right?" And they knew that I'd give me the questions to answer. They knew what I needed to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they said, because we bless and block everything. And if you have a block in front of you, make no mistake, you can get through it battered and bruised at best, or you can shift. And if you see another block or wall, shift again, etc. And then they stopped and they looked at me and said, "You think," and they kind of reached up to I guess my head, whatever my
Yeah.
brain. "You think you know what's best for you." They covered their heart and they said, "We know what's best for you. And what you try to control controls you, and what you run from chases you. All you have to do is walk the path."
That is so powerful. It's so powerful. And I love that, you know, what you run from chases you. And
Uh,
what was the other one?
What you try to control controls you.
That's
Think
it.
about it. When you try to
Yeah.
control something, it's all you think about. I'm going to control. I'm going to make this happen. You know, you get obsessed with it.
You do.
So I didn't understand that. And by the way, I tried to control everything in my life, most of my life. I lived the same journey everybody else did. And so I laugh about it now because I think when I let go and I still try to control things. Well, not everything now. I'm better at that. But when I let go and let it unfold, it ends up being an outcome that doesn't cause me nearly the stress, because it's going to be the outcome it's going to be, whether, whether I take a different path, whether I go through the door that maybe I have 3 doors in front of me, my free will, that's what I call my free will, the doors. And,
Mhm.
people tell me, well, it's, I can't get through it. It's a door. And I go, it's a door, open it, and go through it, and you'll find what your path needs to look like for you at that moment. And you will learn in each one, whichever one you choose. And so I would try to control, like if I do this, it's going to be that. If I do that, it's going to be that. There's my doors. And I wouldn't open them to try to control it. That's what I was running from, was maybe opening a door and just taking the leap, or I was trying to control it by deciding what was behind that door, and I would figure it out before I opened it. And that was not going to work.
Right.
So what we do is we go to our intuition and we ask them, what would be the most promising door to open, I guess. And then we decide whether or not we're going to open it.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the biggest challenges, certainly when I look at life, because again, as a reformed left brainer, but still always, a left brainer at heart, which is not a bad thing, because I think that is what has driven me to better understand what the nature of consciousness and the human experience is about. I want the logical version of it, and I've found it. It's there for all to see. It's just that because we're so programmed and conditioned to believe this westernized version of life is the right one, that you don't see something which is way more beautiful, something which is way better. But it's understanding, and this is always the challenge, because I've come up against the blocks in life, and I've tried to bludgeon my way through. And now, and again, your books help me with this, and I've been is understanding that, okay, that block's there for a reason. Is that was the path that you used to take, and it used to be quite successful, but it's come to an end because now we need you to do this instead, right? And
Mhm.
that is something that has really sort of sunk home to me. But that is something again that really resonated with me when I read it, thinking, yeah, okay, now I see that that's a block, because this is the challenge. I know that there is a paved road out there for me, and it's already done. I just have to follow it. And to be fair, the elevated planet thing we've got now, Jolie and I were talking about this earlier, and we believe we're on that golden paved path, taking one step at a time, because she's very connected, and we do keep, we regard ourselves as three, co creators within Elevated Planet. There's me, who's the left brain, and we've got Jolie, who's the spiritual right brain, and then we have the divine, right? And that's where the real instructions come from.
Right, right. And I tell people, we aren't just spirit beings having a human experience. Pause for a moment and recognize that we are also human beings having a spiritual experience. So it goes both ways. There's two sides to that mirror. And that's why we struggle.
Mm,
I was in a church one time. I don't even know if I wrote this in my book. I might have. And I was listening to this preacher talk, and wanted my children to experience everything. So of course, we took them, and for a short while they really enjoyed it and got to meet people and have fun. And so I was going and I was listening to this preacher, and he says he's reading something, and he's giving his own interpretation. And I'm sitting next to my husband, and he says, and the paths were paved in gold. I almost fell off my chair. Now, I was a grown woman with children, and I did not know the Bible said anything about paths or gold. And I said to my husband, did you hear that? What? And I was just blown away, and I wanted to pass out. I could feel my adrenaline going. And my husband was going to be a priest. He went to seminary. And so he said, well, yeah, I knew that was in there. And I said, why didn't you tell me? And he goes, well, first of all, I didn't think you didn't know. And secondly, you have your own, thing you have to figure out. And I thought, well, my God, it says it right there. It says it right there. I'm not crazy.
yeah,
I get these verifications of the journey that I had or that I saw, and it's mind blowing to me.
yeah.
Dr. Moody, I studied under him to get my doctorate in divinity so that I could help children that have near death experiences. And he said to me, I said to him, I didn't get to see the tunnel. Like, why didn't I get to see the tunnel? And I was really like, I wanted to see the tunnel like everybody else. I wanted to look back and see my body. I didn't, and I wanted to see the tunnel. And he says, well, have you ever thought possibly that the well was your tunnel?
Mm.
What?
Yeah,
I'm back
yeah,
there
yeah.
again. What? Like these aha moments that make you go, oh, I get it. I get it.
Mm.
And that happens to me still. I'm 65 years old and I'm still doing that.
Mm. Yeah.
Craziness.
Yeah. I mean, Raymond Moody, a very special man, right? I mean, honestly, how many decades of work has he put into that? And starting off as a pioneer when this was kind of like very unfashionable, where he had to
Yes,
go against a lot of very strong opinions.
we still do. He's very brave because no one was on his side. Even his friends thought he was nuts until one of them had a near-death experience, which is Evan Alexander was his friend. And he thought he'd gone off the deep end. He's a neurosurgeon. What's wrong with Raymond? And Raymond's a philosopher and he has his doctorate in several areas. And so he was like, what's wrong with him? And then he had his experience and everything changed.
On Elevated Planet, we've used a few near-death experiences as the backdrop to the programs that we put out when we do the live, because I think that the journeys that these people go on, and they come back with a story that is so on point as to what this is really about, and there's a fearlessness about it. We don't need to fear death. It's not that we want to die. It's just that you don't need to fear it because this is just a moment, right? But we can just enjoy this. It's an honor to be here, to undertake this journey and to enjoy it, because when we enjoy it, that's when we're getting it right. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, forgiveness and joy both are extremely important. I was talking with someone recently who was telling me about this person who had had a near-death experience and he had seen hell. And so people have asked me, what's that about, Susan? That's really, really scary. And it makes me feel like that's where I could go. And I said to them, I asked the spirit world, what's that about? I need to know. And I
Yeah.
had this dream. And in this dream, they spoke to me and they said, if you go back and look at the people who have had those experiences, they were living their life in a way that was very unhealthy, harming others, harming themselves, whatever it is they were doing, maybe drug addiction. And we've tried everything to get them to shift so that they can have a good life and get to forgiveness of themselves and others, etc., and have love. And they weren't listening. Don't think for a moment we didn't know they weren't coming back
Mm.
or that they were coming back. We knew they were coming back. So we gave them an experience to elicit real change.
Yes.
And it unequivocally, every one of those people made a complete 180 when they came back.
Yeah.
And they help people and they love people and they do things for people. They made a 180.
Yeah.
And they said, don't think we didn't have that plan all along.
Right.
So they created, and they said to me, evil is in the minds of mankind. And they said man, but they mean mankind. And we let them experience their own journey on the other side and and the immensity of what the damage they were doing to themselves and others.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when people say to me, should I be fearing hell? I tell them, well, let me explain to you what the spirit world explained to me, because that makes total sense.
Mm.
Being damaged and punished for being human and living a human experience and not doing it perfectly would make no sense to me whatsoever. So it's so vastly important that people understand that they are safe when they leave this planet and they are loved and they'll do anything in their power. And what a great opportunity for the spirit world to change someone's actions and behaviors.
Yes. And I'd heard, and maybe you can comment on this, but also that, we are creator beings while we're here. Okay. So that is my understanding, is that we are creators, but we're largely unconscious creators because we are kind of in that bubble where we do not realize our own connection to the divine or our connection to our higher self and our guides, angels, and all this.
Yes.
But at the same time, you know, when we cross over, we become instant creators. So while we're in the physical and we've got this low vibrational physical vessel that we travel in through life, the creation process is slower because it has to be, because it's a physical manifestation. Whereas when you cross over, you're in the non-physical. So your creation is instant. So if you expect, because maybe you're a Catholic and you've been told all about hell and you kind of resonate with those points that are going to take you to hell. So you cross over, the first thing you experience is going to be the hell that you have just created for yourself, because you're your creator. You are the creator. And yet I've seen it like where people think, oh, give it a few moments and think, hang on a second, this is not real. This is me that's doing this. I can do better than this. And then they find themselves going to the light and feeling the love and the joy and that. I mean, how does that sound?
Yeah, that also. So, you know, and that's a learning process, isn't it? Both ways, it's a learning process. I have not had one person tell me that before coming back, they didn't pray or ask for help and asked to be pulled away from that and believed in their true consciousness that they could be, and then they were gone from there. So yes, that makes sense also.
Brilliant.
So
Excellent.
they both have meaning. Yeah.
Totally. So the room of heart's desires. Do you want to just explain a little bit of that?
I popped at the bottom of some stairs and I looked up, and of course I didn't understand this at the time. I want to say I'm an adult now, so I can verbalize it very differently. And I saw this Greco-Roman room. It had pillars going up, and there was an open ceiling, but with almost like cement, just like a Greco-Roman room with cement going around the top of it. And it was all broken and cracked. And I looked up at that and I thought, I knew there was a hole that matched the ceiling, the openness in this room. And I had no fear. And I thought, I want to get up these stairs, but how am I going to do that? And boom, I was there. And I was on the edge of this, what I called the well. I believe it was the tunnel, but I called it the well. And I was watching movement go through it. And looking back today, I would say it looked like DNA, but it was one consciousness. And it was all these people's thoughts and prayers and hopes and dreams in the room of heart's desires, basically their heart's desire. And I saw this going on in this one consciousness. It was all blending together. And I looked at the angels and I said, where am I? And they said, you're in the room of heart's desires. And I said, do you answer all those? And they said, no, Susie. Sometimes what people desire the most isn't good for them. I didn't like hearing that, because my mom used to say, just because you want it doesn't make it good for you, you know? And so I was like, who are these people? My mom sent them, you know? I was very conscious of the fact that I had a mommy and that I was going to be with her again. I was very conscious of that. So I didn't have fear base. I was very peaceful, but I just wanted to get back there. I wanted to not get back there. I wanted to blend back with her.
Yeah.
At some point. And they assured me I would. So I thought, well, I will then. You have absolute trust. So that's the room of heart's desires. And it had other things that occurred in it. But the most powerful, I believe, thing that happened to me, which I only share on very few podcasts with people I really trust, to be honest, is I looked to my left and I saw this mountain. And it's very emotional for me. So if I cry, I apologize. But I saw this enormous light, bigger than anything you can imagine, and that I can, imagine, honestly, on this planet. And there was this being, and I wrote about some of that, but this is the catch. I wanted to get up to the top of that mountain and I couldn't. And I remember seeing this ray, pure love coming towards me. I didn't need to get to it. It was coming to me, and it enveloped me in this perfection. And I felt perfect. I wasn't broken. I was enough. I was beautiful. I was lovable. I was everything, and I was nothing. All at one. The love was so intense, so powerful, so undeniably not judgmental, that you're perfection. And I was everything, meaning everything, yet I was nothing. I was just like a drop. in an ocean. Without the drops, the ocean is not there. It doesn't exist. We need the drops, yet it's such a small thing, you know, it's
Yeah.
such a nothing.
Yeah.
And so that was really intense.
That's beautiful. It is beautiful. And that's something, again, from the NDEs, you do hear that quite frequently about how overwhelming, but beautifully overwhelming, the love, the unconditional love, acceptance, the joy that, it's just there. And I suppose, and thank you for sharing that, Susan. I get why it would be such a deeply emotional thing. And every time that comes back to you, it's a thing of beauty. But yeah, I can see it's such a beautiful thing. But when it comes to, where was I going to go with this now? Yeah, so something crossed my mind. This idea, of course, that the room of heart's desires, as you say, like you don't always have your wishes granted, because
Mhm.
again, it comes back to this thing, the road that is being paved for us. They know, again, hand on the heart, as opposed to, right?
Yeah,
They know what is right for us, and they know what our highest path is. And that's why they guide us. I decide that I need something, and yet the blockers come down because there is a higher path for me. And if I don't try and battle my way through the block, instead find the other door, the door that's open, that is waiting to show me the higher path. And
yeah,
it's a beautiful thing.
yeah. You know, I really believe that our intuition, and I've come to this just over the years, I really believe it's not just the guides talking to us, although I know they are. I really believe it's our higher selves
For sure.
telling us, you know, hey, pay attention.
Yeah.
Because it matters to me what we do with us.
Yeah. And is that we had an interesting show going back a couple of months ago. We featured a man by the name of R.J. Spinner, and he was one of these miraculous healings kind of thing. He came back from absolute edge of death where nobody thought he would go forward, and he healed himself. And he kind of he's here for a very divine purpose. And how he explained the higher self, he says that, within the physical vessel itself, because it's a much lower vibration, you can fit so much soul energy, but only a relatively small proportion. And he kind of gave us a proportion that said about 2.5% of your wisdom and intellect sits within your physical body. 97.5% is out there waiting for you. It's still part of you. And yet, unless you ask, you can't access it.
And it's so interesting to me that if you look at other cultures, they're asking all the time. That's what they're doing. They're asking for the highest being, you
Yes.
know, and so our culture just tends to, the Western culture just tends to think that we're in charge. And I
Yeah.
laugh about that because I always think I'm in charge, you know, I'm not, they're not the only one. And so, you know, I understand that, but we are fearful beings and we fear that if we're not in charge, you know, bad things will happen. And yet things happen even when we are, you
Right.
know, and because they're meant to happen.
Yeah.
And good and negative, you know, but I think that nothing is really truly negative because, you know, it's all equal in value. They both teach us something good and bad, I guess, if you want to call it bad. I call it the seemingly bad.
Yeah,
Um,
I get that.
yeah, so that it teaches us something, you know, um and you know, and I've had a lot of seemingly bad things happen in my life. As people read the book, they're going to find that out. I'm not sitting here on a pedestal saying, you know, listen to me. I've had some of the darkest things that can occur happen in my journey.
Yeah.
um and I still know, you know, that is the human existence for my lessons and the doors that I maybe chose to open some of them, and maybe I didn't choose, someone else chose to open some of them, you know, but they taught me more than anything else could have taught me.
Yes, absolutely. And as I say, it's to be the healer that you are, to have experienced the things that you've experienced make you a very powerful healer. So I'm sure a lot of these things were not accidents in their own way. But this is one of the things that I've learned, is that we're here for the contrast, right? Because you can live in unconditional love throughout your entire existence, should you choose it. But how do you know what unconditional love really is unless you've had a contrast. You need something to compare it to. And in life, we get the duality, the contrast, right? So you got the stuff that is the darker end of the scale, but it's there to teach you so that you can choose the light. But
Yes.
this is the joy of it.
Yes, absolutely. And it's so weird when you say that I'm a powerful healer. I go, yeah, what? Does he think that? It's so interesting to me when people say that stuff to me. And this is really honest. I sit and go, oh, what's he talking? Like that's where I want to go. And then I pause and go, aren't we all? It's just some of us have built it up and utilized it in particular ways, and others have chosen not to. But we all have that capacity. I just think that we're not, maybe in this life journey, we're not meant to use it.
Right. Well, I know that, from that first time I met you back in May 2018, everything about you, your energy, it's so welcoming and it's kind of like you set people at ease. And it's that brings openness. And I just remember, like you'd sort of like sit and then you'd be looking out over this way and then you'd start telling me about who was coming through. And you're just like keeping your, but it was wonderful. And I had a number of readings with you. In fact, my daughter Stephanie and I came through there at a number of occasions as well. And Stephanie had some fantastic readings through you. And in fact, I do remember she had a session which was very much, it was almost it turned into a life coaching session for her because she was suffering with the same thing that so many young people were suffering from at the time, which is this unworthiness, right? And that was the thing that was absolutely, and she left in tears, but in tears of joy because she now understood that she was worthy. She had the the mantras to quote to build herself back to who she truly was, who she didn't actually understand that she was. And that was something that came through so powerfully. I also remember, I mean, again, like you talk about this evidential mediumship thing. My partner, Emma, when she first came to America back in 2019, I said, okay, well, as soon as you land here, I'm going to book you in for the reading. So the day after she landed, she came in for a reading with you. And one of the things that I found really, truly remarkable was that one of the things you said to Emma was that, oh, so what's this about the car? And Emma said, oh, well, I know that John took his car into the garage. And you said, okay, well, your mom's telling me it was her who told him to do that. And as he was driving to the garage, she was sat alongside him. Okay, because her mom passed away when she was just 15 years old. Now, one of the things I remember, it was a Saturday morning, the day I took the car into the garage. I had no intention of taking the car into the garage. I actually was on my way down to the gym. It was about 7 in the morning. I got all my gym stuff on and out the door. And even before the door closed, I just heard this voice. The car has to go to the garage. I thought, oh, the car's got to go to the garage. So I don't know. I had no idea where it came from, but I went back in, I got changed. I took the car into the garage and it ended up needing about $4,500 worth of stuff. We were about to take a road trip, Emma and I. We were about to take a road trip and it would have gone potentially dangerously wrong because a number of those things were bad things that, there was a tire about to blow, there was a water pump about to go, air conditioning, there was so many things. Had I not had that sudden little voice of inspiration to take me there. And I knew it was weird because I'd never done that in my life before. But I never questioned it. I never said to Emma, the craziest thing happened. So she didn't know the full story at that point in time. But when that came back to me through Emma, through you, I thought, wow, you know, the connection that we all have. I never met Emma's mom during life, but on the other side, apparently we know each other quite well. So,
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And she's going to protect her baby, you
and
know?
she did it very well. And I know
Yeah.
she's done it on a number of occasions. And again, Emma gets it. She's always known that there's a connection there. And that's another good point, actually, because again, subsequent to my reading with you, I then went back home and I created my shrine, which I have my shrine over that side of the room now. So all my past relatives, I've got my mom, I've got John Boy, my ex-father-in-law, I've got my grandparents, my, cousins, and anybody who's passed, they're all over there. I talk to them every day, you know?
Oh, I love that.
And
I
and
love
I
that.
and this is again something you put in your book about talking to them because they are always around you. And that is one thing that I really got out of that first ever reading with you. I thought, wow, my mom died in 1981. Now it's 2018. She's been with me throughout. And and
Yeah.
she even held Stephanie, my daughter, before she was born.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, people say, I so much wish my father could have met my child. And I go, oh, well, let me just tell you, they have a very close relationship. And you'll notice that your child will be like standing there watching someone in the corner, laughing and giggling and pointing and trying to tell you they're there.
Mm,
And I said, give it about 1 year old when they
wow.
can actually verbalize, and unequivocally they say, oh my God, that's what they've been doing. You know, they're talking to someone and laughing and giggling, but I don't see them. And I say, because they're there, it's, our connections don't break because we're born. And in fact, I think they solidify because we need them so vehemently.
Mm, yes. Yeah, I do love that, and there's a synchronicity that really made me laugh actually, based off the shrine I created, basically following my reading with you. And I used to have, like I was in the apartment on my own, and I just had a conversation, and I'd read this article about Joe Cocker, who was, like who died, I think, in 2014. But he's from Sheffield, which is my hometown. And my father had sent me this article, and I'd read this thing on Joe Cocker, and I like collecting vinyl records. I hadn't got any Joe Cocker, so I'm talking to the shrine. I'm saying, "Oh, John and Mom and all that. I'm going to go down to Costa Mesa today, and I'm going to meet some people. And there's a record store down there. I doubt whether they'll have any Joe Cocker, but I'm going to just see. And if they do, then fantastic. I'm going to buy a Joe Cocker album." So anyway, having had the conversation, I traveled the hour down to Costa Mesa, down to the lab. You'll know that, Susan. And
Yeah.
the sort of like the Airstream caravan there, which has got all the records. What you'll also you may also realize when you see it, you'll see next time you go down there, you'll notice it. But you have 4 records on display. They've got all the bins just full of albums in alphabetical order. So I just, naturally go to C for Cocker or J for Joe or whatever. But when I got there, I see the 4 records across the top. The first one's like Human League, a Sheffield band. The second one, Def Leppard, a Sheffield band. The third one, Joe Cocker, the man from Sheffield. And I didn't even get as far as the fourth one because by then I was just burst out laughing. I thought that is just madness. That is crazy. Anyway, so then I thought, spirit has humor, right? This is kind of the thing I get. So I think, okay, well, how can they do that? So anyway, I then went off and I had a meal with the people I was there to meet, came back and thought, right, now I'll go and buy a Joe Cocker album. And I go there, it's gone. And I thought, wow, I have missed my opportunity to buy it anyway. And then I realized they always play a record, and the record they were playing was Joe Cocker.
Yeah, see, there it is. They're gonna
So
pull you in.
So I bought the album, but it was just so bizarre. But it just couldn't be coincidence. I was in Costa Mesa, which is 5,350 miles away from Sheffield. Why would they have a display completely? It could have been completely because it might have been Pulp, the fourth one, or something like that, from Sheffield. But what the only 4 on display. And I just thought, wow,
Yeah.
that's just crazy. And I kind of put it down to the fact that, I talked to the family. I talked to my friends that are on the other side, and the guides, whoever is pulling the strings out there, and they have a sense of humor and you enjoy it. So, again, the power of asking. But that's the point I really want to get to, Susan. Tell us about how important it is to reach out to that other 97.5% in guides, angels.
Well, keep in mind that our souls are love, and the love comes from the divine. So I call our souls divine to the divine.
Mm,
And that is, why I say our souls can never be wounded. They can feel wounds, our souls, but they can't get wounded because they are the connection. It's kind of like if you take a leaf and put it in your hand and you look at it, it's just a leaf. But if you hold it up to the light, it's filled with vines. And that's our
Mm.
soul. And
Yes.
that's the lifeblood, right?
Mm.
And so, as I feel that with, every connection we have in talking to them, we are talking through our souls and they're speaking back to us through our souls because there's the vine.
Mm.
And not only are we building that muscle that says, I believe, I trust, I'm there, I want to be part of, but they also feel connected to us. And when we just dismiss them, we're not utilizing them. So it's kind of like I liken it to mom's in the kitchen on her phone and she's cooking. And the little kid, I think I write about this, the little kid comes up and starts pulling on her pant leg and mommy, mommy, mommy. And mommy's so busy, preoccupied, not, I say life's in session, be present. Well, she's not present. And she's so preoccupied, and this little kid's, yanking, and then finally gives up and walks away and goes and watches this little commercial or whatever, and or cartoon. And mommy finally realizes, oops, because we kind of like have that recall, and goes out to find little one and says, what did you want? And the little one says, never mind, or I
Yeah.
forgot, or it's
Yeah.
not important any longer because maybe the incident's already happened that they're trying to warn us of. The little one I liken to being, of course, the spirit world.
Yes.
So we have to be present and pay attention and speak with them. Also, it opens up the door of communication because, I have these 3 A's that I teach. And I've really expanded that. So, it's awareness, acceptance, and action.
Mm.
So we become aware that they're in our presence. Maybe our hair stands on end. Maybe we get goosebumps. Maybe, something changes. The air changes, something. And that's our awareness. And they become aware that we're aware.
Mm.
And then we accept that there's someone there. And they become aware that we're accepting that they're in the room or someone's in the room. So they're excited now.
Yeah.
And then we go to action, which is just trust. We take the action of trust and they go, oh my gosh, they're trusting I'm here. And then they step in, and start giving us information. Now, what we do is we do the opposite. We go, I feel something. Oh, it's probably nothing.
Right.
We go, when the acceptance comes, we go, nah, that wasn't them talking in my head. And then we go, I don't trust this. This is craziness. I'm going to go out to eat, or whatever. So we always do the opposite. So they lose the connection with us.
Mm.
So if we want the connection, we have to go through some steps to trust it because we have a human brain.
Yeah. It's what we came here for, isn't it? This is the challenge, and it's. But I don't know about how you feel about this, but to my mind, we're going into, or we have come into a new era now. We've come into a new cycle on the planet where we're leaving behind the separateness that we've been, living in for 13,000 years or whatever the number is. We're now moving into towards this unity consciousness where we will start to gravitate together and understand we all come from a single consciousness, and do you have a view on that?
Well, we are the single consciousness. So I always liken it to the ocean, back to the ocean. The ocean is vast and huge, and it's one giant space to our minds, but it's actually little drops of water that created it.
Yes.
In other words, without the water, there is no ocean. And
Yes.
we are the water, and they are the ocean.
Mhm.
And when we look at it in totality, and so each of us are intermingling because in the ocean, if you think about it, that water is mixing together at all times.
Mm.
That one drop is next to that next drop, next to that next drop.
Yeah.
And so there's a very powerful and easy way to look at it,
Yes.
because I think people at conceptualizing what we're trying to say is so difficult, and that's such an easy way to see it.
Yeah. Yeah. This is absolutely, it's beautiful. I love that. I love that. I also love the wolves there on your right hand side, or yeah, your left hand side actually. Over
Yeah,
on
my
top.
babies.
Yeah. Oh wow. I
Yeah,
didn't even notice the picture. I was looking at the
yeah.
the carvings. It's beautiful. It's
Yeah, I have them everywhere. I love them. I'm very attached.
yeah. And obviously from the book I got the wolf connection as well. That was part of who came, well, one came through to you, right?
Yeah, well, and I did a past life regression, and it was so interesting because I go under pretty easily. And I was there, and she was trying to bring me back, and I kept sobbing. I woke up, I was just wet sobbing, saying, I don't want to leave my babies. I don't want to leave my wolf. And they were wolves. And I thought,
Wow.
wow. And I was a Native American, and I was, trying to stay with my baby. Like they almost, I was nurturing them. I was taking
Mm,
care of them. I was feeding them. It was really bizarre, like going
mm,
through that experience
mm.
of not wanting to leave. And so I have a very powerful connection to them, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. And certainly the Native American culture as well, it honors the life force of all animals, and particularly, the wolves and everything are known to be powerful. And again, it's not something that what you're talking about there, people fear wolves typically if you came across one, but the experiences you've had, the love, the nurturing, the joy, right?
Right. Well, they look into your soul through your eyes. They see your soul. I don't know if I even wrote about this, but I can't remember. I had an experience where a woman was doing my eyebrows, just believe it or not, and she had a wolf sanctuary,
Wow.
injured wolves in her back, and um, she said, "Do you want to meet one?" Oh yeah, I'm there right now. Forget the eyebrows, I'm there. And she brought one in to her home. And she
Right.
said, this is a very, more tamed, loving, gentle. And she said, just don't challenge, don't look in its eyes, don't challenge, don't stand tall, just allow it to be around you. I had no fear.
Mm,
And I have a picture of this, by the way. I have a
mm.
picture of this. This wolf put its ears down and
Oh,
sat next to me
yes.
and then came up, literally came up and looked into my eyes. And I didn't know, is it going to bite my face? And I thought, I'm not going to be afraid. I'm just going to let it be. And then I felt this sense of peace come over me, of safety, like
Mm,
it knew me and I knew it. And I could see it looking into my soul to check me out. That's what I felt. It's checking me out right
yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And then it just got down, put its ears back, and just sat there.
Mm,
Now I didn't, she said, don't reach down and pet it. I don't want you to do any of those things. I'm right here, and don't be afraid. I said, I'm not afraid. And everybody that sees the picture goes, are you out of your mind?
mhm.
And I'm like, no, it felt right. It felt
Yeah.
right. And I could feel the essence of love,
Yeah.
pure acceptance. So I understand it when they put their ears back. Apparently that's some kind of, acquiescing, which is very
Yes.
unusual for a male wolf.
Yes. Yeah, no, we have the same kind of reactions with Nala, our German Shepherd dog, because they're all descended from wolves, right?
Yes.
That same sort of body language. So yeah, absolutely 100%. But I think it's kind of we're again moving more towards a time, and it'll take us a while to get there, but I think it also brings us back into harmony with nature and understanding that the animals, I mean, talk about shamanic power animals and the likes as well, is there's we learn to honor that these are conscious beings in their own right.
Yes. Well, there's the room of companions there. And that's our
Right.
animals. There's very powerful. And if they're there, they have meaning.
Yeah.
They mean something very powerful to us.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I'm sure that they were planned in our life paths as well, right? The same
Mhm.
way, with children and the likes. And I love the bit of, again, one of the other highlights within the book, is you adopted your two girls, right?
Mhm.
And the way that happened and the way that comes through in the book, that's just so moving.
It was the most healing thing that's ever happened to me, I'm certain.
Hmm.
And, not being able to birth, I thought, I, how am I going to deal with this in my journey? I can't. The
Hmm.
pain was so deep, and yet when this happened, it unfolded so bizarre. And I think I talk about when I'm in my a car and I wanted another baby. I already had one, and I had one. I actually adopted one that the birth mother came back. She was a 13-year-old who had a boyfriend that was in gangs, and so they gave the baby up, and then they came back and got the baby. And I thought, this is such a weird story. I don't even know if I talk about this, but I'm having a dream the night before this baby's born, and I have these Native American women around me,
Mm.
And they're passing this baby around saying, this is not your baby. And I keep trying to reach for the baby and they keep telling me this is not your baby. So I wake up and I tell my husband, this is not my baby. And he said, don't be ridiculous. You know, you've been waiting. And I
Mm.
said, no, this is not my baby.
Mm.
And I know it. And he said, we're going to get the baby. This is
Mm.
your baby. So my sister and I, you know, go, it was just all weird because my husband usually would go with me and it was just so strange. And the whole thing felt like a dream. But now I'm awake and this is happening. The baby's born the next day. I bring the baby home. I'm taking care of the baby, you know, weeks go by and then I get a call that this baby's not mine. She wants the baby back. But yet the whole time I knew.
Mm. Yes.
So it saved me from that destruction feeling of, oh my God, they're taking, you know, my
Yeah.
baby. And then I'm in the car driving. This is years later, 7 years later, and I hear this little voice and I'm crying and I'm saying, why isn't a baby coming? I just want another baby so badly. And I hear this voice and she says, don't cry, mommy. I'm just not born yet. I'll be here in 2 weeks. It was this, I didn't hear the voice in my head. I heard it outside of my head and I was stunned.
Mm.
And it was so loud and so real and so true. 2 weeks later, she was in my arms and we didn't even know a baby was coming.
It's I just love that, and that was very emotional when I read through that as well. But because you can empathize with the emotions, you can feel what that must have felt like. But to be able to get those messages through as strong as that, and to understand that, even though you couldn't birth your own child, it was written, your child is coming to you, right? And
Yes,
this, and
exactly.
yeah, and
It
that's
was
just,
written. I love that.
it's a
I
beautiful
love that.
thing. You know,
You know, in this book, I did not spiritually bypass. So the first round, I got a message from one of the top editors at Hay House, and she said to me, um, "I don't want you to spiritually bypass." And
mm,
I knew what that meant. That meant that I wasn't feeling the emotion of what I was writing. And I thought, oh no, I don't want to go back and all, but I did.
yeah,
And I was a little scared because there's a lot of pain in this book.
yeah,
And I rewrote sections and I felt them.
I couldn't
And
believe.
so my goal was that it would come across as a real feeling and now you're verifying for me that that's exactly what people experienced when reading these things that I wrote.
Yeah. It's true, you do, and as I say, it was also in their own words, sections from the people that you've kind of deeply affected in life, and this is just a small cross section of those people, but you feel the depth of the pain they may have been going through, and the healing that they received, and the change of their life that you changed my life, right? I wouldn't be sat here now doing this, doing Elevated Planet thing, and loving the journey. I love the journey. To me, that tells me we're on the right path. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to have had you to trigger me going
Thank
back to
you.
2018, to use your divine gift to connect me back with mom, who was who'd always been there. I just had no idea she was.
Yeah, always been there. And she's so happy that she's with you now. And
Mm,
you understand that. It
I
changes
do.
everything.
It
It
does.
brings so much joy.
It does. It
There
does.
is no true loss. I think we have physical loss, and that is powerful and painful.
Mm,
You know, there's the grief, but
yeah.
there is no true loss.
Yeah. For sure. We always talk about this and say, just because we say, well, we can't die, we are immortal spirits, just going through a human experience at this particular point in time. But that doesn't diminish the grief process, because, the price of love is grief, and
Yes.
much though I now understand so much more about the nature of consciousness and the human experience, if somebody close to me was to pass, I would be grief stricken.
Oh, absolutely. Me too.
And I would certainly be helped by knowing that they are on the other side and I will see them again. And actually, they're still with me now, but I can't physically be with them. So you have to grieve through that. I totally respect that. But, one of the things that we often say here is that one of the most beautiful moments in your life will be the moment that you die. Because once you shed the physical body, in fact, we offer it with a money back guarantee. So, well, if we're wrong, come back and tell us, but these near-death experiences, you kind of see where it is we came from, and to a degree, the bravery it takes to come down to the physical world, to experience this contrast. But unveiling these things as you help me to start to peel back the layers to understand what this was about. And again, I always knew your book would be good. I always knew it would be good. I didn't realize how good it was going to be. And
Thank you.
I
That
think a
means
lot,
so much to me.
well, I think a lot of it does come down to that spiritual bypassing kind of thing. There's none of that.
Mm-mm. And I think that the two greatest moments in our lives is birth and death. They're very similar in value. And I say this, knowing that this planet's not easy, but we are told there, I'm going to give you a blip of feeling every emotion, having every experience of physical touch, of love, of giving birth, of, getting married, of all these things that we can do on this physical plane. And I know I wouldn't turn it down, even if they said some will be hard. I would be like, yes, let's do it. If I was, a being of light, yes, I
Yes.
want to touch, I want to feel. And then we come here and, we're excited because we're going to do it. Our souls know, and we just like come out. And then when we leave, we're like, okay, I'm grateful I've done it. And and I probably will do it again, but, I'm tired and I need a break.
Yeah.
So we have it on both ends. And I see birth and death as so similar because, the baby's fighting, trying not to come out. And there's all these contractions and there's fear. And then they come out and they cry and they scream and people are touching them. And then you blanket them up in love and
Mm,
you put them in mommy's arms
mm,
and they're safe and joyful and happy and peace. When
mm.
we're leaving, we're fighting it. We're fearful. We don't know what's going to happen. This is why death is so frightening to so many. Not
Yeah.
being there, but the death itself. And then we get there and they blanket us in love and we
Right.
are at peace. Similar in value.
I love it. I love it. And Susan, I'm just going to say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for putting aside the time soon after the release of this fantastic book. And again, I love it because it's such a complete work and it is a practical guide for life. I love the fact that you put in the exercises so you can break it down from your own personal perspective and take individuated steps forward that are your steps.
Thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure. And, Susan, I'd love to, I know we'll remain in touch. I know that, our paths will
Absolutely.
cross again. And good luck with the second book. And, I look forward to following on with more the interview for the next one, maybe something in between, whatever we can work out.
Thank you for having me. I mean that.
Yeah.
I want to come to England. I'm starting to pick up a little bit there. The book is starting to. The UK,
Yeah.
because Hay House puts it out there. I just haven't seen it yet really pick up big out there. I hope it does.
Anybody who picks it up will value it. I know that. As you say,
Thank you.
it is kind of conversations with God kind of territory. Yeah.
Thank you so much, John.
Yeah, my
Thank you.
pleasure. Okay, well, thank you very much again, Susan, and thank you again to our Elevated Planet community for tuning in. And don't forget to like and to subscribe and all that kind of thing. But more importantly than anything, do yourselves a big favor. Buy it.